Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, invited guests all, welcome to the Scottish Parliament and this celebration of our 20th anniversary. Cúd Míle Fáilte go Parliament na Halba. And apologies if my sign language is even worse than my Gaelic. The sign for Scotland or Scottish is a bagpipe played under one arm. And at my first attempt, I used two arms. And I was assured by my colleagues in the deaf community that I just welcome guests to the Chicken Parliament. Now, Your Majesty, you'd be forgiven as you look round the chamber and the gallery this morning for thinking the MSPs are getting younger. And that is true, but it's because we have so many young guests with us, young musicians, young writers, young filmmakers, and special guests. The young Scots born on the 1st of July, 1999, the very day that Your Majesty opened this Parliament for the first time. And I want to say a special welcome to our young guests. You are here, your families are looking on, beaming with pride at who you are, what you have already achieved, as well as the promise of what is to come. And I want you all to know that you carry with you all our hopes, all our dreams, and all our ambitions for Scotland's future. You have already grown in self-confidence over the past 2 decades, just as this place has become a self-confident institution. And just as your families have been there for you, so I hope this Scottish Parliament is now here to help you along the way. Today's events mark the centrepiece of our shared 20th anniversary, a chance to reflect, as well as the opportunity to look at the challenges ahead. And in the case of the Parliament, I'm not going to pretend that we have been without our critics. Those criticisms have often been rebutted with a recitation of our record of achievement, an argument which always calls to my mind that memorable line from Monty Python's The Life of Brian, "What have the Romans ever done for us?" The smoking ban, the minimum pricing of alcohol, free personal care and the abolition of tuition fees, the removal of Section 28 and the introduction of equal marriage. It's a legislative record that I am very proud of. But just as important is that the Parliament itself has evolved to reflect the needs of the people that we serve. This is a Parliament where the individual voice can be heard, where we listen to the testimony of the Scottish MESH survivors, where the words of Amanda Copel can turn the struggle of her husband Frank and so many like him into new rights for disabled people. The fortunes of political parties have waxed and waned. The institution has adjusted to coalition, to majority and minority government, but through it all, Parliament has matured. It is adapted to a country that is changing and has changed, from a socially conservative country to a progressive one, from a country in which that Monty Python film was banned to one where yet again last week the Parliament flew the pride flag. When at our opening, Donald Dewar so movingly spoke of the shouts of the welder in the din of the Great Clyde shipyards, the speak of the Mearns rooted in the land, he captured the essence of that transformation, and I think some of the struggles that accompany it. He described a country shaped by coalfields, steelworks and shipyards, but where few now exist. And in this new world of sometimes fragmented communities, of increasingly isolated workplaces where work itself is no guarantee to protect you from poverty, he reminded us of the shared loyalty of the workplace, the power of comradeship, the importance of social solidarity. He reminded us that with every passing day, more of us move from the land to the town, less in touch with the movement of the seasons, perhaps, or the ways of life of our forebears. Yet Parliament needs to be conscious of the environmental degradation and the ecological havoc that our new urban lifestyles can wreak. Last summer, at the quite beautiful funeral service of one of my predecessors as presiding officer, Sir Alex Ferguson, the church resonated to the sound of Love Divine or Love's Excelling and by Cool Siloam's Shady Rill. And at this already sad and quite moving occasion, it struck me that my own children may not know the hymns and the psalms that I was reared on. But like our young guests today, they know different songs, new songs for a new age. Yes, there is a poignancy, what the French call tristesse, when we move on. But what matters is what we take with us, the values that we hold on to. And I hope and I believe that this Parliament can help us hold on to what really matters. The mace, which Your Majesty gifted us, has inscribed on it the words wisdom, justice, integrity, and compassion. And it is those values which will defend us against the dishonesty of false promises, the rage of social media, or the threat of fake news. Those of you born on the 1st of July 1999 or any since have never known life without a Scottish Parliament. But I believe you know what matters. You know the values to hold on to. And I am proud of what we've achieved in 20 years. But I'm even more hopeful of what you will achieve in the years to come. Thank you.
Presiding Officer, First Minister, members of the Scottish Parliament, the Duke of Rothesay and I are pleased to join you today in marking the 20th anniversary of the Scottish Parliament. We fondly remember that proud day when new members gathered in the Assembly Hall to celebrate Scotland's first Parliament in 300 years. I have noted on previous occasions my great affection for Scotland and the many happy and personal connections I enjoy with this wonderful country. It has been with great pleasure that over the years I have watched Scotland grow and prosper and have been with you at each stage of your parliamentary life, including on landmark occasions such as today. 20 years on, this chamber continues to be at the centre of Scottish life as an important forum to engage and unite diverse communities, and also a home for passionate debate and discussion. Through new initiatives, you continue to strive to be responsive and accountable to the people you serve, and to engage and involve those who might not otherwise participate in political debate. It is perhaps worth reflecting that at the heart of the word Parliament lies its original meaning, a place to talk. I have no doubt that for most of these last 20 years, this striking chamber has provided exactly that, a place to talk. But of course, it must also be a place to listen, a place to hear views that inevitably may differ quite considerably one from another, and a place to honour those views. In turn, this occasion today gives us all an opportunity to honour those who help turn talk into action. Not just members of the Scottish Parliament, but all those behind the scenes, the many unseen, unsung individuals who are not afforded recognition by the nature of their role in Parliament, but who nonetheless join together to support parliamentary work in the service of others and the success of the nation as a whole. Presiding Officer, as we look to the future, it is my sincere hope that this Parliament and all those who come to serve in it will use the power of this chamber to celebrate those invisible pillars of our communities and follow their example by working tirelessly to improve people's lives and strengthen the bonds of friendship and partnership, both at home and abroad. Today, with the echo of excitement and enthusiasm I encountered 20 years ago, I extend to you all my warmest good wishes on this special anniversary. for the continuing prosperity of the people of Scotland, and for those who represent them in this remarkable Parliament.
And by yon bonny braes, where the sun shines bright on Loch Lomond, oh, we twae pass sae mony blithesome days on the bonny banks o' Loch Lomond. You
Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, let me begin by thanking the National Youth Choir for that beautiful performance. And Your Majesty, on behalf of all of us, let me thank you for your presence here today and for the thoughts you have just shared with us. Ever since this Parliament reconvened 20 years ago, the mace that you gifted to us has been our most treasured possession. The words inscribed on it, wisdom, integrity, justice, compassion, are a daily reminder of the values we must live up to. And your remarks on that day, noting that Scotland was stepping across the threshold of a new constitutional era, captured the significance of the occasion. They conveyed both the optimism surrounding the rebirth of this institution and also the scale of the challenge we faced. Now, there were times, perhaps especially in the first few years of the Parliament, when the sense of challenge seemed to outweigh the sense of optimism. But the hopes you expressed for us in 1999 have to a great extent been vindicated. Although this Parliament is only 20 years young, it has long come of age. That is an achievement from which all parties can take pride. Although we passionately disagree on many issues, we have also worked well together. This chamber, as was always intended, has often been a centre of compromise and consensus, as well as debate and dispute. The 290 Acts of Parliament that have been passed so far have varied in their impact, but from land reform in the first Parliament to equal marriage in the last to the Social Security Act in this, they have all made Scotland a better place. And as a result, this Parliament is firmly established as the centre of our nation's public life. We have become the democratic institution that people look to reflect their priorities, their values, hopes and dreams. And now we look forward to a new decade in which this Parliament will build new institutions and, I am sure, see further change and development. And as we do that, in times, of course, when politics can seem more divisive and confrontational than ever, I hope we will maintain our commitment to working together in the common good. In doing so, we will be reminded that however much we may disagree, we are all united by our desire to do our best for the people we serve. Our First Minister, Donald Dewar, who I am sure is in many people's thoughts today, captured that sentiment well 20 years ago. He highlighted that we are fallible, we will make mistakes, but we will never lose sight of what brought us here, the striving to do right by the people of Scotland. That striving for social justice has no end. Throughout the last 20 years, it has, of course, seen this Parliament make mistakes, but it has also delivered significant progress. So today we can and should take heart as we look back from the achievements of the last 2 decades, and we will continue to draw inspiration as we look forward from the values inscribed on our mace. If we stay true to those values and to the people that we serve, then we will continue to make progress towards an even wealthier, fairer, better Scotland for all who live here, no matter where in the world they come from, and for the generations yet to come.
Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, Presiding Officer, it is an honour for all of us here present to be able to mark 20 years of devolution. Unlike the Presiding Officer, the First Minister and many others in this chamber, I wasn't here in 1999. I remember sitting in the Student Union of Edinburgh University, listening to Concords fly past overhead while watching the pictures on television. I didn't know then what a Scottish Parliament would look or sound like, how it would change the political landscape and grow to dominate our country's public life. But there was a sense that for our generation, the equation had changed, that devolution offered new possibilities, and not just for Scotland, but for all of our family of nations. And so it has proved. 2 decades on, and Holyrood has become a fixture of our political and civic life, an institution that is knitted into the fabric of our society. From closing the Ruddle loophole to legislating for equal marriage, this chamber has proven itself adept at both reactive legislation and of leading the national debate. It allows space and contribution, not just from the major parties speaking today, but from independents, from hospital campaigners, from senior citizens' representatives. Even as we politicians express our differences over business in the chamber, take a step back, and there is consensus that as a process, devolution has made our country stronger. Through infancy and adolescence, there have been bumps along the road, but leadership and nurturing from consecutive presiding officers has helped this Parliament to grow and to irrevocably establish itself. As with any 20-year-old, there remains lessons to learn. But as Holyrood enters its third decade, it is without question a stronger and more substantial institution than that which first emerged in 1999. This is not just to be welcomed, it is to be celebrated. This is a Parliament for all of Scotland, accessible to everyone and richer for their contribution. So on behalf of everyone on my own benches, I'd like to close by paying tribute to the staff that make this place function, the security guards, the catering team, the posties, who are as integral to this place as any MSP. This is their home, while elected members only visit for as long as their term of office allows. To colleagues from all parties, past and present, and especially to those we have lost, we recognise their contribution and service to the people that we represent. And to Sir Paul Grice, who since day one has diligently and discreetly steered the ship, helping new members find their feet, and a few old hands as well. And to Your Majesty, with us on every significant event of our journey, from all of us, we thank you.
The long view. When you were born, my daughter, my son, the half-moon grinned and the sun shone. You came after a long song of a labour of years and years and then some. It was July when you at last appeared, hanselled with the mace from Her Majesty. Ma'am, good day, bright-eyed, flushed, newest day, and the crags at your tiny feet, and Arthur's Seat. When you were born, bairn, red arrows flew over your city, and everyone you met, pets, wanted to join you on your journey between the lochs and the ferns, between the braes and the bens, between the crofts and the bothies and the rowans and the pines, between the high-rise and the tenements and the wimpy houses in the big cities, between the north and the south, the east and the west, and the land and the seas.
Nuair tú in Nian, Ila, va corna gelis a green a jarsach. Hanna kun je oren surach of a fat blinich and kien. So nocus and newcomer haverchest, is not huikentis van Valnery, the sulen of our ladenach uur and la sure, na cricket the Cassan Vegas art the suya. No look at the ene line of pine. Sul Sajanjaricus Kion Savalis, for Gach Nech Hakarosh, a grid of Colorut do Hurst. It are the lockings, the Reinach, it the Bruikins, the Biantin, or the Gorchinans, the Biohan, as the Guis as a Koran. Is it an Italian, set at Art the Seashell, sit in Italian Bickus, the Belgian Mora, sit a Tuis Jis, against Talu Smur.
Now I know of someone in Killowen, Ardnamarkin, who remembers an old Killowen man, who remembered an old Killowen woman who'd once seen all the houses ablaze, and these were the first of your days. Stories to keep the past alive, a poem read aloud to knock the future's door, a song sung by Sheena Wellington for all that. You're 20 now. We couldn't be prouder. Look how you've grown in stature. This is about who we are and how we carry ourselves, your godfather's premonition the day you were born. We are not a people that takes to the compliment well. Put it this way, you've carried yourself well.
Siog, sa'n yw'n gwybod gen alych iddo choen, eich fel cwnio'r botox sy'n atio, se gra, gynnu cwnio'r calwch y cwnio'r tain ar ffat yn y laser. Agus bydd sio, do lain tosiwch. Sian i gysgys yn tam o gwm y gleoch, o'r diwn eich ailir mae cnoc yn doris yn chins na roen, o'r li môr ag y gynchyn go herige. How ficit yn ish. Nach sy'n hach o asal. Sial mae'r ias o sŵs a gynchyn go herige. Mae sial mae'r sy'n ys mae'r hasyn gael gwyl ang ein, mae'n y goetl y dyfreia. Chai hami mar sy'n ach melt yn each, mae'r fol o ywt yr ywsicet.
20 years on, what can I tell you about your birth? Your birth was a process, not an event. Your wee form emerged between the land and the stone, a citizen already sitting, seen through the portal, and the boats carried you out to see what you could see, and back to the land, to the bottom of the Royal Mile. Every way you turned, your smile made others smile, and if at first you faced ridicule and some were hostile, you held your own and carried on. Groundbreaking land reform. First up with the smoking ban, and on and on. Remember the jubilation when same-sex marriage was passed, when Clause 28 was opposed. Look how you shone the light on the darkness of abuse, how you let all Scotland out and modern Scotland in first footing. Nane for thee a thochty sparing, earth, thou bonny brookit bairn. You knew what was right and what was wrong, and oh, how your citizens sang their song.
Under the common wheel, wheel, wheel. Under the common wheel, we'll thrive. What was a brobrick day when you were born alive? We wane under the common sun, dun dun, where you'd been currying dun, under democracy's moon. We wane, hoping that everything would be fine, and you'd get to tell your story. We wane, who kenned what was recht and what was wrong. We wane, just look how you've grown up, mighty fine. Oh, my darling, you'll I be my trusty Phoebe when the darkness descends, when the Macphees roar and the Lochans sing. We wait, ye sing to make the world a better place. And oh, my country, you will always be loved and respected by me. My country, loved and respected by me. My country, my
Scotland
country.
itself is my country, said Sorley MacLean. My other country is Ireland, and after it, France, our great Gaelic bard said plainly. And if he were alive today, maybe he'd have been compelled to name the other 25 countries. Scotland itself is my country, and 20 years on, my country has changed. I remember it once being a country I ran from. In those days, you felt unwelcome. You passed, you pretended, you kept your mouth shut unless you sang.
Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way.
And now look, old Scotland is no more. gay men kiss at the Parliament's door. Hope travels all the way round the world. Hope has people it wants to meet, hands to shake. Hope flies to New Zealand, to the South Island in solidarity. Hope wears a hijab and speaks out against hate. Hope comes home, finds a hearth, a country ahead of its time, looking out across the land and the years, across the cold North Sea, where the waves knit in plain and pearl, is a country to sign you a lullaby, a country to rock you awake.
Speechless. If what they say cannot be understood, and the many voices is silent. If no one its language.
It must be a bizarre thing, being in the same room as all these people who share the same birthday as you. Everybody dressed up and looking so fine. And when you were born, Nicola, in the middle of Wimbledon, in the middle of the day, between the opening of the Scottish Parliament, you were induced. It was a quick birth. And your gran jumped over a wall to tell all you were a girl. And the Hieland coo jumped over the moon, and the dish ran awa with a wooden spoon. And you're the future Parliament's bairns, sworn in that hot July day in 99. The grass is greener in Scotland, Callum said. The milk is better and the people friendlier, Nicola said. It's nice that people can be themselves, Megan said, and not be afraid. I'm excited, said Alicia Hermanowska in her Dear Scottish Parliament letter, to see what the future brings. Here's to the next 20 years.
Under the common we'll take the long view.
Under the common we'll. We're taking the long view.
Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, Presiding Officer, beautiful song, beautiful poetry. I stand proudly as the leader of the party which in government delivered devolution. I stand proudly as the leader of the party which in opposition defends devolution, because it is an unassailable truth that each generation has to win the same battles over again. I stand proudly, but with great humility, Today is a time for reflection and to think of those who we have lost. And I think especially this morning of Donald Dewar, who at the opening of this Parliament 20 years ago said, "Today there is a new voice in the land, the voice of a democratic Parliament, a voice to shape Scotland, a voice for the future." And he would be the first to say that we have much unfinished business. We began to reform the ownership of our land, the land out there, under the sleet, churned and pelted there in the dark. But too much power still lies in too few hands. We have legislated for equality, but too much inequality still persists. Inequalities of race and religion, of sex, gender and sexuality, of disability, of age and of class. And over the last decade, the rich have got richer and the poor have got poorer. We passed laws to end homelessness, but all around we see lengthening waiting lists for housing and the return of rough sleeping. We brought Scotland's biggest private hospital into the National Health Service, but we have yet to eliminate the private profit motive and the shareholder dividend from every corner of our public health service. And we began to change the economy in those early days, and the rates of employment have risen in later days. But our industrial base is still too narrow. Too much of its destiny lies in the hands of faraway boardrooms, and too many jobs are far too precarious. So we have a job to do ahead of us in rebalancing the economy so that it runs by and for the people. There is much unfinished business. People are hungry for real change, for a vision of a better future, a more equal country, a cohesive society, with an economy which is working for the people rather than people simply working for the economy. And so it is up to us, to this generation of political leaders, to stand together for new hope, to inspire the people, to bring about that real change, because there is no iron law, no inevitability about the future. We make our own history, and with the consent, but also with the determination and the will of the people, that new voice, which Donald Dewar spoke of so passionately, will be heard and real change will come.
friends, the opening of this Parliament was an exciting time for the country. It was an exciting time as well for my own party, with the election of Robin Harper as the first Green parliamentarian for any part of the UK, paving the way for the growth of the Green parties throughout these islands and raising a challenge to the idea that growth is everything. But my own experience of that first session was not as an MSP. I was a youth worker, supporting young LGBT people in Glasgow, and I was drawn into the hostile atmosphere of the debate on the repeal of Section 28, or Section 2A. And that issue came to dominate the first session in a way that few people had imagined. So in March 2000, with this Parliament only 10 months old, I found myself sitting in the old debating chamber in the Assembly building up at the top of the Mile, giving evidence as a committee witness. That experience shaped how I felt about this new political institution more than the referendum or the Constitutional Convention or the long campaign for self-government had done. It was a difficult experience, but that time was also an empowering one for my community, the LGBT community, whose anxiety about what this Parliament would do with our rights and equality was allayed. We saw Parliament take on an issue which was harming us, face down prejudice, and assert our equal place in Scottish society. And since that time, a marginalised community has grown in confidence thanks to a Parliament which to this day has never once voted against our equality and human rights, a record we have confidence will continue. But my experience was also of a Parliament whose doors were open and where we as citizens felt able to enter and participate in the decision-making process. The original vision of a Parliament that would share power with the people became a reality for me that day. And since then, thousands of people have had that same opportunity to take part in the work and the life of their Parliament. We can always do better. The idea of a Parliament sharing power with the people must be constantly renewed and reinvented. Parliament has grown in confidence as well, always seeking to grow beyond its constraints on issues from the protection of asylum seekers to social security, from tax policy to international development. And all political parties have been on that journey, even if we don't agree on the destination. We're now living in a time of political turmoil, uncertainty, in the midst of a climate emergency and an ecological crisis. And as we look ahead, we must again grow into the role that's needed of a modern Parliament, in exploring new participative forms of debate, like the planned Citizens' Assembly, bringing the voices of the sovereign people of Scotland into their Parliament, actively part of the decision-making process. We will continue to renew that vision from 20 years ago of a Parliament that shares power with the people.
Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, Presiding Officer, it is an honour as a 99 survivor to offer a few thoughts on this most auspicious of occasions. I perhaps reflect more on that today than most, 20 years on from that walk down the Mound to Scotland's reconvened Parliament, our hopes, our aspirations, our desire to succeed. The greatest test of any MSP is not a speech in this magnificent Enrique Morales chamber. It is a grilling by local primary school pupils. 3 searching and persistent questions have dominated my 20 years. Why haven't you tackled climate change? How much are you paid? And have you met the Queen? Your Majesty, you may not recall a conversation at a Holyrood Palace reception involving a former First Minister, Jack McConnell. The discussion was about ram's bread on the Castle of May farms. Many a Shetland primary school pupil has been greatly impressed by the Sovereign's knowledge of the breed characteristics of the North Country Cheviot. May 1999 began with the challenge of 2 parties forming a coalition. How old-fashioned that now seems. My party had ploughed a somewhat lonely furrow on Home Rule for many a decade. From Grimond through Steele, Bruce and Kennedy, it fell to Jim Wallace to negotiate a government with the late Donald Dewar. As the two haggled over the finer points of the agreement, Donald queried a manifesto policy proposal. "What Liberal Democrat preposterous nonsense is this, Jim?" asked the Secretary of State for Scotland. That, Donald, is a Labour Party manifesto commitment, replied the leader of the Scottish Liberal Democrats. This young Parliament has changed Scotland. Scotland does not blink an eyelid at same-sex marriage. People in the borders catch the train to Edinburgh. We don't smoke in pubs. And Shetland is now on the map, in the right place. As an islander, everything has changed and nothing has changed. I've seen colleagues in here dance on Eights Reel to the music of Fiddler's Bid with a Viking Jarl squad. Shetland came to Holyrood that day, or as some islanders continue to put it, it's always fine to take a trip down to Scotland. So on a day when those of us lucky enough to be present in 1999 will not forget Donald Stewart's speech, his turn of phrase, his commitment to create this place, it is my honour and privilege to have served. A privilege to meet the sons and daughters of Televarg, a Norwegian coastal town whose fathers and uncles were lost in Nazi reprisals in 1942 for helping British commandos and the crews of the Shetland bus. A privilege to hear The Last Post played at the Menin Gate with my family. And a privilege to walk the sands of Sword Beach and study the gravestones in the British War Cemetery at Bayeux as we commemorate the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings. Scotland is an immeasurably stronger place today. Let this Parliament flourish, and those who serve next enjoy the spirit of discussion, the argument, and yes, the downright row. It's been my honour to serve the people of Shetland and to play a part in the evolution of Scotland's democracy. Above all, I thank my family who've supported me through thick and thin. There is, Presiding Officer, no turning back, and nor should there be.
A fond kiss, and then we sever. A farewell that lasts forever. Deep in heart-run tears I'll pledge thee. Warring sighs and groans I'll wage thee. And who shall say that fortune grieves him while the star of hope she leaves him? Mean a cheerful twinkle lights me, dark despair around me nights me. And I'll ne'er blame my partial fancy. Nothing could resist my Nancy, but to see her was to love but her, and love forever. Had we never loved so kindly, had we never loved so blindly, never met or never parted, we had never been broken-hearted. So fare thee well, thou first and fairest. Fare thee well, thou best and dearest. Thine be ilka joy and treasure, peace, enjoyment, love and pleasure. a fond kiss, and then we sever. A farewell, alas, forever. Deep in heart-run tears, I'll pledge thee warring sighs and groans. I'll wage thee. I'll wage thee.